Week 10 is equipment and instrumentation. And I just kind of want to show you where week 10 comes from. It comes directly from the ARRT content specifications. This is equipment and instrumentation from the ARRT content specifications. And so week 10 follows this format. Okay, so we start with IVUS. IVUS stands for intravascular ultrasound. And so this is an ultrasound transducer that is attached to the end of a catheter. The catheter is then put inside a blood vessel to ultrasound it, and the images it produces are considered digital images. We'll talk about that in a minute. Angiography can only provide information about the lumen of a blood vessel, whereas IVUS can visualize the vessel wall. Remember, the vessel wall has 3 layers. The inner layer is the intima, the middle layer is the muscular media, and then the outer layer is the adventitia. And so the IVUS can actually visualize all 3 layers of the wall. It can also help determine the composition of a lesion, meaning lipid lesions or more fatty lesions are echolucent, meaning they are more black. Fibrotic lesions appear a lighter gray, and calcified lesions appear a bright white. So in this way, IVUS can help determine the composition of a lesion, again, where angiography is not able to do that. IVUS can also help determine correct opposition and expansion of a stent. So meaning if a stent is not opposed well to the wall, then that will be demonstrated on IVUS, and then we can re-expand the stent to provide a better fit. One limitation of IVUS is the inability to positively identify thrombus, and the most common complication with the use of IVUS is it causes vasospasm. Okay, so moving on now to aspects of a digital image, and any image on a computer screen is considered a digital image. So that includes, a phone, an image on a phone, an image on a tablet, an image on a computer monitor, any type of computer screen is considered a digital image. And all digital images are made up of pixels, which are tiny little squares. The word pixel stands for picture element. A matrix refers to the rows and columns of pixels. So here is this black line here is the image, and so this large square is representing the monitor, and so this monitor is divided up into tiny little squares, which are the pixels, and the pixels are arranged in rows and columns, and that is considered the matrix. Now, when talking about pixels and matrix, you always want a smallest size pixel for better detail or better spatial resolution, and you want a larger matrix. So you want a small pixel size but a larger matrix. You want more rows and columns. Okay, moving on to the term dynamic range. So dynamic range is a term associated with digital imaging, and the definition is the range of exposures that can be detected by a detector. Digital has a wider dynamic range than film, meaning digital is more sensitive. It is better able to detect the differences in the signal and display them as different. So what that ultimately means is more shades of gray, but you have to understand why there's more shades of gray. There's more shades of gray because digital is more sensitive. It is better able to detect the differences in the signal. Okay, so I try to explain this in this example, and I use just these numbers that are completely made up. The numbers themselves don't have any value or really mean anything. Okay, so we're going to pretend like we have 2 X-ray machines here. So here's the first one, and we're going to say that this one is film. Here's the next one, and we're going to say that this one is digital. Then, of course, we have the image receptor, and as we know, X-rays travel through the body and hit the image receptor. Okay, so we're going to pretend that film was only able to detect X-ray photons 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Whereas digital is more sensitive, and it was able to detect all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Digital is more sensitive. It was able to detect all of the X-ray photons, and it knows that all of those X-ray photons were different in their energies, and so it displayed them as different shades of gray. Whereas film isn't as sensitive. It could only detect 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Where maybe it detected X-rays number 1 and 2, but it thought it was the same as number 3, so it would have displayed it as the same color of gray. So film has a narrower dynamic range, whereas digital has a wider dynamic range. And because it has a wider dynamic range, it is better able to detect the differences in the signal, and so it will display them as different shades of gray. So again, having a wider dynamic range ultimately means that there's more shades of gray, but you have to understand that the reason there is more shades of gray is because it is more sensitive and is better able to detect those differences in the signal. So once again, digital has a wider dynamic range. It is more sensitive. It is better able to detect the differences. Therefore, it will display them as different. Therefore, there will be more shades of gray. Okay, so finishing up with some terms that deal with digital imaging. Data acquisition. Before an image can be produced, the data must be acquired by the equipment. And in X-ray, the remnant radiation is considered the data or the signal that the equipment needs in order to make the picture or the image. In ultrasound, the sound wave that bounced back to the transducer is considered the data or the signal. Then we also have post-processing, which is only possible with digital equipment. That is, we can change the image. We can make it lighter or darker, which again, you can't do that with X-rays on film. That term of changing the brightness is called windowing. Windowing refers to changing the brightness with window level and changing the grayscale with window width. So again, these are all terms that you will need to know. Archiving. Archiving digital images is different than archiving film X-rays because digital images can be stored on tape, CD, flash drive, etc. Also, there can be several sets of original images. And remember, with film, X-rays are often lost because only one set of originals exist. Films are kept in a designated storage area. So again, they take up more space. Quality control. Regular maintenance and quality assurance tests must be performed on digital equipment to ensure they are working properly.